Hello. So in this video, we're going to talk about the poetry of Ivor Gurney. And I'm reading these out of the Norton Anthology of English Literature, which includes only two of Gurney's poems, To His Love and The Silent One. These are World War I poems. Gurney is an interesting World War I poet, in part because unlike a lot of the other famous World War I poets, particularly people like Wilfred Owen or Siegfried Sassoon, Gurney was a private soldier. He was not an officer. And so his experience of World War I on the Western Front, at some of the worst fighting of the war, including at Passchendaele, where he was gassed, really reflects this individual soldier's experience, whereas the other poets, yes, they reflect the horrors of war, and I think they're generally quite accurate, but it's different to be a commander than it is to be the commanded. The direct threat and violence faced by privates is different than that faced by officers. And so Gurney gives us that perspective, which is somewhat unique among the British World War I poets. He was also trained musically. Gurney had attended the Royal College of Music, and so it's interesting what he does with sound in his poetry. To His Love is a lyric poem, and of course lyric poems are by their very nature able to be set to music. They have a regular rhythm. And so in this case, the regular rhythm is built partly through the rhyme scheme, but the regular rhythm, the metric rhythm, is also disrupted in places. So while it is sometimes a repeating rhythm, there are some lines that are longer or shorter that break that rhythm, that give us a sort of dissonance of sound in the poem. So this is the poem, To His Love. He's gone and all our plans are useless indeed. We'll walk no more on Cotswold where the sheep feed quietly and take no heed. His body that was so quick is not as you knew it on Severn River under the blue, driving our small boat through. You would not know him now, but still he died nobly, so cover him over with violets of pride, purple from Severn side. Cover him soon, and with thick-set masses of memoried flowers. Hide that red, wet thing I must somehow forget. So, again, we've got a rhythm to this poem. It has a regular structure. These are in 5-line stanzas, and you can actually see if I hold this up here, you may be able to see. The first and third line of each stanza starts at the margin, and the second, fourth, and fifth lines are all indented. So the lines that are rhymed are all inset, and they're shorter lines. So in the first stanza, the rhymes are indeed, feed, heed. In the second, it's you, blue, and through, etc., etc. And this is what creates really the regular structure of this poem. But again, we have these moments of disruption, like this line, driving our small boat through, is a longer line. The meter is different than is not as you and under the blue, which are the second and fourth line of that stanza. So we have that disruption, these places where the rhythm doesn't quite fit. And I think that's really symbolic of this chaotic, destructive nature of World War I. And the twist that we get at the end, that the body of this fallen soldier is not only that he has died, but He has become a red, wet thing I must forget. There's a profound transformation here, caused, of course, by the violence of the war. And I think that the structure of this poem, the rhythm, the metrics of this poem reflect that sort of chaotic, destructive nature, because with a lyric poem, what we would normally expect is a regular rhythm, something that could easily be set to music. Whereas here we have a kind of broken rhythm. We don't get what we expect, and it's jarring. It disrupts our expectations. The other poem, the silent one, this is less of a lyric poem, but he does a lot that's really, really interesting with images and fragments. Fragments of sentences, fragments of thoughts, fragments of images that, again, jar within the poem. So I'll read you this whole poem as well, the silent one. Who died on the wires and hung there, one of two, who for his hours of life had chatted through infinite lovely chatter of Buck's accent, yet faced unbroken wires, stepped over and went, a noble fool, faithful to his stripes, and ended. But I, weak, hungry, and willing only for the chance of line, to fight in the line, lay down under unbroken wires, and saw the flashes and kept unshaken, till the politest voice, a finicking accent, said, "Do you think you might crawl through there? There's a hole." Darkness shot at. I smiled, as politely replied, "I'm afraid not, sir." There was no hole, no way to be seen, and nothing but chance of death after tearing of clothes. Kept flat and watched the darkness, hearing bullets whizzing, and thought of music, and swore deep hearts, deep oaths, polite to God, and retreated and came on again, and retreated, and a second time faced the screen. So again, we have these moments of sort of disruption of sentence structure or fragmented imagery. But we also have this deep cynicism that we really get with people, again, like Owen and Sassoon. We have the polite officer asking, "Do you think you might crawl through there?" This very English phrasing, stereotypically English phrasing of this sort of polite, self-deprecating, self-effacing. Do you think you might possibly be able to consider potentially doing this thing? This is a very stereotypically sort of, especially upper crust English thing, to not give an order or to demand something, but to put something in the form of a request, even when it's not a request. This is an officer giving an order. But then we have this last couple of lines. And retreated and came on again, and retreated, and a second time faced the screen. I think this is a really interesting last couple of lines because it emphasizes something significant about the structure of World War I fighting, particularly on the Western Front, that this fighting largely consisted of wave after wave of charges against entrenched positions, often not gaining any ground whatsoever. And there's this repetition of returning over and over and over again to these horrific charges, these horrific lines of barbed wire, places in no man's land, these terrifying, destructive, devastating, fatal charges that are just ordered over and over and over again, and that lead to millions of deaths for, in many cases, little, if any, gain. and often no gain of any real value.